Hi, I'm Scott Wolf, and the little boy in this picture went on to work for Disneyland and become an important part of its history. When Ron Dominguez was a little boy, his family was living in Anaheim where they owned orange groves, but they were soon encouraged to move because someone had bought the land, and they were made a good enough offer that the family really couldn't refuse it. None of the 17 families that were asked to move were yet aware that the new owner of the land would be Walt Disney, and that it would be used to build his new theme park, Disneyland. And of course, they didn't know that little Ron would grow up to be one of the top executives at Disneyland. In this Disneyland employee newsletter, here's a photo of Ron christening the Columbia sailing ship for its 30th anniversary rededication in 1988. A funny story with this photo is that after failed attempts to break the bottle of champagne, as is traditional in a ship's christening, they just decided to open the bottle and spray it on there instead. When Ron's family was asked to sell their house, Ron didn't have any sentimental attachment to the house. It was a different story for his mom, though. After all, it belonged to her parents. Ron's grandparents originally owned 20 acres, and they struggled in the early years of it, waiting for the orange trees to grow and produce. They did what they could to survive. They leased out some of the land between the trees, and they sold some of it, but by the time Disney purchased the land, they had 10 acres of orange groves that were thriving. The whole area was mostly orange groves at that time, and there were 2 walnut groves. As I said, it was difficult for Ron's mother to leave their home. I want to play some audio of Ron telling me just how Walt Disney helped put his mother's mind at ease.
My mom was very upset. Really, she had a very tough time when she left in 1954 when we drove away. A lot of tears with her because she had struggled so hard as a young girl, to hang on to the property. There was a invitation to the studio somewhere prior to opening. I can't remember the exact time, but we went up for it, and he did a presentation on what he was trying to do and showed drawings and that sort of thing. And I know my mom, because of her closeness to the property, she was very proud of what came in, after it was all over with.
Ron ended up moving to Arizona and going to school there, but then he thought he'd like to get a summer job at Disneyland. One weekend he came home for an interview, and he started working for Disneyland in early July 1955, just before Disneyland opened for the first time. He was a main gate ticket taker for the first 2 weeks before being moved to work on the Disneyland Railroad. When I spoke with him about opening day, he said he wasn't inside the park, he was taking tickets. But what he mainly remembered was just that it was very crowded. The opening day was actually a press preview, and people were given tickets, such as this one that I have, with times printed on them for when they should arrive. But Ron said people were so anxious to visit Disneyland that they didn't wait until the time on their ticket to attend. Now, Ron's house and the 10 acres of orange trees were about from where Tom Sawyer Island is to about Pirates of the Caribbean, and his house and another house were moved together as the first administrative building. Working for Disney, when the time came to remove Ron's house, he was presented with a very unique opportunity. I want you to hear the story in Ron's own words.
The 2 houses that were the administration building was torn down when the diorama was put in, the second diorama. Not the Grand Canyon, but the Primeval World, yeah. And that was kind of in the way, and I put a sledgehammer into the house. And, yeah.
Was that fine? You wrote it wasn't sentimental?
Yeah, it wasn't sentimental to me. Yeah, I did fine with it.
Yes. This is an issue of Backstage magazine, which was a Disneyland cast member publication filled with lighthearted stories and silly photos and comic strips about Disneyland. The artwork was done by Disney artist Charles Boyer. And on the front cover, you see Walt Disney driving the castle and Mickey to his new park. But if you open it, you see a young Ron Dominguez selling oranges at his home on Cerritos in Anaheim. The orange crate by little Ron's feet reads Dominguez Orchard. Ron was given the original artwork, which he kept proudly displayed in his home. If you look down below the artwork, you see a little window. That was given to Ron to commemorate the time when he received one of Disneyland's highest honors. His name was placed on a window along Disneyland's Main Street, USA. While the windows are meant to appear as businesses of the old turn of the 20th century, there's usually a special meaning to what's depicted. Ron's window reads that he is the owner of Orange Grove Property Management, with the appropriate message, "We'll care for your property as if it were our own." Over the years, Ron moved up the ranks of Disney, ultimately becoming the executive vice president of West Coast Attractions in 1990. That included not only Disneyland, but also the Disneyland Hotel, which the company had recently bought from the Rather Company. That acquisition also included the ownership of the Queen Mary ship and Howard Hughes' Spruce Goose plane in Long Beach. In his role, Ron was also responsible for the expansion of the Disneyland Resort, which would include a new Epcot-type park called Westcot Center, featuring Space Station Earth. Ron worked closely with the city, county, and surrounding areas, all while making sure to maintain Disney's good image throughout. It was Ron's great disappointment with the cancellation of that project that ultimately led to his retirement. You know, one recurring theme that you would hear if you talk to people about Ron is just how nice he was. He was just a real down-to-earth guy, very kind, very humble. He was quite low-key. He didn't want to be in the spotlight, and that played into a story that he told me about his early days at Disneyland when he was working on the Mike Fink keelboats. He was chosen to play the role of Davy Crockett, who was like a superstar in those days. He was extremely popular back then, and he always attracted big crowds. Here's Ron in his own words.
I played Davy Crockett too. That was another experience.
On the keelboats?
Yeah, that was in '56, early '56. I played Davy Crockett. Somebody said, you know, put a coonskin hat on him, he'll look like Fess Parker. I was tall, and I was taller and thin, and not. I've shrunk 2 inches and gotten fatter. I'm not one that like to be looked at, even when I went in a salary thing. You know, I always want to be low key. And I'm coming around by the Mark Twain dock, and I just about had it with this Davy Crockett thing because it was so popular. And this lady is dragging her kid all the way around the river's edge there. Davy Crockett, Davy Crockett, Davy. I finally docked the boat, and she wanted a picture with the kid, you know, so I did my thing with the kid and took a picture. I got off the boat, and it was time for a break. I went right to Nunes' office and I said, that's it, I've had it. No more stardom for me.